With unmatched broad-spectrum disease control, best-in-class dual mode of action residual, and improved plant health, Delaro Fungicide from Bayer will help growers achieve their personal best yields.
Delaro is a fantastic broad-spectrum fungicide because it has two strong chemistries. Each mode of action works differently and has ideal conditions under which it works. As the environment changes, by having two modes of action in the tank, it allows for greater flexibility across these environmental conditions and more consistency of performance. So by working in two different ways, the strobilurin by inhibiting spore germination, the triazole by inhibiting proper membrane production, it allows to have greater consistency of fungicide over a longer period of time. And the neat thing about Delaro is both AIs work through the entire spray interval. We have the active ingredient ratios mixed in such a way that we have that longevity of performance from both active ingredients.
Delaro application timing can depend on a particular crop and disease. Some diseases Delaro can help mitigate for the soybean include frog eye leaf spot, brown spot, white mold, Rhizoctonia aerial blight, powdery mildew, anthracnose, and Asian soybean rust.
There's two major timings to apply the fungicide in soybeans. The first one is around R1, and that's primarily if you have early season diseases such as white mold, or in some parts of the Midwest it could be Septoria brown spot. The typical application though is usually made around R3, and the whole idea around that R3 timing is for canopy protection and reduction of stress. A lot of the yield differences come not just from disease prevention or slowing down diseases that are present, but reduction of stress. Diseases can be a stress, but also if the soybeans are under less stress, then they abort fewer blossoms and pods, which results in higher yields. So stress reduction is one of the primary reasons to apply a fungicide on soybeans.
Some diseases Delaro can help control for corn include gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, rust, tar spot, anthracnose leaf blight, eye spot, and southern corn leaf blight.
Corn, we have two application timings. Typically, we have an early season application timing around V4 to V7, that early window. What we're trying to do with that timing is two things. Number one, we're trying to reduce the initial infection in the middle of the canopy by keeping the bottom part of the crop plants cleaner longer. A lot of these diseases, such as northern corn leaf blight and gray leaf spot, they move up the canopy, they survive in the crop residue, infect lower leaves, and then move up the plant with successive infections, getting to the middle of the canopy, which is where the real photosynthetic engine is for grain fill. By keeping the bottom part of the plant cleaner longer, we now protect the middle canopy somewhat indirectly. Second reason is we can keep a lot of those pathogens out of the stalk, which cause stalk rot later in the year. So we have better standability, we have a stronger, more healthy stalk with better vascular tissue, and that translates into greener leaves at the end of the season. The most important timing probably is around tassel timing. Protection in that early part of that reproductive window, VT to R2, that's the time to make that application, and then you get residual activity for roughly 21 days or so to keep those diseases out and prevent them from getting started early enough to impact that grain fill.
Delaro is registered for ground application, application through irrigation equipment, chemigation, and aerial application, which gives producers some flexibility. While application timing may be the most crucial piece to Delaro's success, another important component involves the quality of the application to get adequate coverage to protect the crop.
A lot of growers they have their own spray rig, and they'll calibrate their sprayer for their first application of the season. Usually it's a herbicide, and use that same setup all the way through the season. It's important to understand that some of the characteristics you may want from your herbicide spray may not be ideal for your fungicide spray. Some of those herbicides are systemic. They can move up and down the plant, they can move around the canopy. Fungicides are different in that if they have systemic movement, it's only in the apoplast, only upward toward the tips and edges of the leaves, not downward. So that type of systemic movement doesn't get into brand new tissue, and it's not going to compensate if there's errors in the application. I want coverage, so I want to take whatever steps are necessary to make sure I get good coverage. Very coarse droplets, which are commonly used for some of your herbicides, aren't ideal for a fungicide, because if I get a very coarse droplet, it's large. I would rather have a medium-sized droplet for the fungicide, so that large coarse droplet is now in a large number of droplets. I can distribute them across the leaf surface, getting better overall coverage and have a consistent concentration of the active ingredients across a broader surface.
Producers should be sure to follow mixing order when using Delaro or any other fungicide, which also can affect the quality of the application. Also, keep resistance management in mind during application.
Strobilurins are already at risk. Resistance to strobilurins is pervasive around the world. We don't have as big of a problem here in this part of the Midwest yet, but if we look at frog eye leaf spot, it is moving through all parts of the country, and for that particular disease, strobilurins do not work anymore. So you need to have the triazole in for efficacy. But I'd like to see both applied uniformly across the entire area, across the entire geography, to forestall development of resistance to other diseases as well. By mixing the different modes of action, it's good for the grower because it increases consistency of performance and increases the likelihood of getting response from his fungicide, but also it protects the chemistries from having enough selection pressure to cause a population shift where we start losing the efficacy of modes of action and lose some of their utility. We don't have that many tools, so it's important that we protect the tools we've got.